Here's a look at Nepal from about 500 miles up, and now down to about 40 miles up. Notice that Kathmandu is actually in the center of two valleys. One looks like a volcano crater, and then surrounded by the Himalayas and the range at the Indian border. Here's a view at 12,000 feet over the geographic center of the city. We drop down now to 7,000 feet, and from there pan pretty much directly north for a view north of the city. You see Everest up there at about 1 o'clock. We'll do a fast pan to the left, counterclockwise, looking to the west. And you're able to stop the video at any point and take a good detailed look. Here's south. Returning to the east, there's the airport, the southeast of town. And back up to north. We're going to do the same thing now. We're going to pop up to 35,000 feet above the ground. This would be a bit higher than most airliners would cruise at. Up to the north again. You can see the border in yellow up there. We'll do a pan around to the west, and again you can see the state or province borders in green, the national borders in yellow. Notice the geography to the east, which we just passed there, is quite a bit different from the geography to the west. So that's a tour. I'm going to buckle up now, drop down to about 7,000 feet, pan to the east, and take a little bit of a tour. This is again about 7,000 feet above the ground. The east is decidedly less populated, or appears less populated than the west, and the terrain is different. The ridges run essentially north and south, or at least they're a bit more random, or to the west they typically run east and west. Here the valleys are separated from one another, and in the west they're unified. We'll return back to Kathmandu, and we'll spin around to the left, to the west. This is from higher elevation. This is from almost 55,000 feet. The reason is to catch more of the terrain. You can see the administrative boundaries in green, the national boundaries in yellow, India off to the left, to the south. And we'll follow the southern mountain ridge and its major valleys to the west of the country. And you can see in the distance the national border coming up 150 miles ahead. As you can see, there's a tremendous flow of water off the Himalayas through particularly western Nepal and into India. One continuous valley off to the left, a southern valley, the southern border of Nepal. And having reached the southwestern corner of the country, we'll now pop up to 185 miles and take a look at the road system comparing northern India with Nepal and then Tibet. This is not all roads, it's major highways. There's Mount Everest for a reference point. Taking a little broader view of the highway system, we'll turn towards the north, and before we do, take a look at the right side, the east side of the country. And now, as we turn and look to the west, I said north but meant west, you'll see that the road system is quite a bit more developed and more extensive. The bright yellow line is the national border. And from here, again, we're 80 miles up and pan to the north and see into Tibet, which is kind of interesting, both the amount of water but also the aridness of the country. But the Chinese love having everybody being able to peek. So now we'll take a break from work and time to really buckle your seatbelt. This isn't the kind of flying one would do for real. If one were really going to do this, you'd fly the ridge lines, not the canyons. But since we're not at risk, canyon flying is a lot more interesting. So here we go. We're starting at an altitude of 16,000 feet above the ground, so about 21,000 feet up. And as we can see, it's a fairly close call. Here we are at 20,000 feet in a bowl near the very summits, doing a 360 tour, looking at the glaciers. The green there is natural. Apparently, it's not part of the processing. And here we're looking towards the west-northwest. So now we'll cruise up towards Tibet and the lee side of the mountains, the arid side. Rugged country. Sharp peaks, narrow valleys, not very many people. This is a look at the Tibetan side of the border, flying generally west, just inside Tibet. And here we are now, flying west along the Himalayas on the north side. In the distance you can see the border, the Nepal border with Tibet. Enough of a break. Returning now to Kathmandu. Taking a look at the major highways in the city, and then preparing for a area tour of Kathmandu. And we'll start here, pan the camera up, looking generally north-northwest. And moving north-northwest. That major road below us is roughly true north. A sort of zigzag here through much of the city, and again you can freeze these frames and get pretty good clarity on them. Now we're at the south side of the city, and we'll take a pass at 6,000 feet above the ground, due north through the center of the city. Here we'll bear a little bit toward the west and follow the ridge line as a glider might do, looking for thermal updrafts. And we prepare to transition to the east side of the city, looking west over the airport. It's kind of fun to see the airplane on the taxiway there. What I think is probably a golf course. Major installation here, probably government. Probably a school off at 3 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock on the horizon is the valley that leads into the western part of the country. And notice the elevation change from the city. Even though it is a valley, it is still several thousand feet higher than Kathmandu. And finally, a reference point. Look at the U.S. Embassy. And from here, we'll take a look at what the embassy would see if it were 5,000 feet higher. Again, panning towards the west. And now south. Here's east. And back to north. And that finishes our tour.